Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, Episode 30. Today's podcast is a tongue-in-cheek exploration of some illustrative examples of how sometimes what a person says is not the same as what that person means. The ability to decode what is meant from what is said is an important and not always straightforward aspect of communication. Wouldn't you agree, guys?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 30. This is Jen Swanson, and this is the podcast that explores all areas of communication in the hopes that something you hear on the podcast will help you to improve your communication skills and, in turn, improve your relationships. And you can hear us on Stitcher Smart Radio, Zune, BlackBerry, and iTunes, as well as several other methods of listening to the podcast. You can also go to www.communicationdiva.com and listen to it live streaming right there. I'm got a picture posted there if you want to take a look at it, and the picture sort of spoke to me about how communication and the meaning of it gets muddled up every once in a while. So if you have a minute, go over to the website and take a look. And it's a picture of a science experiment that was done by some kids at a vacation Bible school that I helped to organize that we ran last week. And it's kind of a funky picture in any case. So I thought I would put it up there and let you take a look at it. The title of the podcast today is 9 Words Women Use, which is a tongue-in-cheek look at meaning. And there's a joke that I found a long time ago on the internet. I guess it's a joke. It's something, I can't find a source for it, but it is something that I use in my communication classes sort of as an icebreaker and also as a way to look at the way we communicate with one another and how a lot of the times that isn't very clear. It is, again, it's directed at men. And it's supposed to be words that women say that, say one thing and mean something completely different. And again, I don't believe in the gender bashing or the stereotyping. And I'm using this as an example of how sometimes what we say is completely different than what we intend. So I'm going to go through the 9 words that are listed in the joke, and I'll tell you what it says in the joke, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. And I hope that you will take some time to come over to the website and leave me a comment and let me know what you think about some of these as well. Okay, so the first one is the word fine. And I've got it on the website in blue italics. It says a word a woman uses when she is right and you need to shut up. So this is one I have said. I've said the word fine when I haven't really meant it before. And in fact, it's meant the exact opposite. And it doesn't really matter if I'm talking to a man or a woman. It's all about the intonation. And I actually despise this word. I think I even wrote a poem about it, and it might be posted. It's posted somewhere on the site. There probably will be a link to it at the bottom of the show notes. But I think it's a pretty inadequate word. I think it's untruthful a lot of the time, and it usually doesn't really mean anything unless you're talking about something like fine bone china or fine dining or somebody having fine hair. But if somebody asks you how you are and you say, "I'm fine, thank you," usually that's just being polite. It doesn't really tell you anything. Intonation is everything, and it can infer the meaning of the word. So if you are really fine, then good. But if you're just saying it to be polite, I kind of think, what's the point? So sometimes I try, when somebody says, "How are you?" I try to avoid the word fine, and I try to say something more truthful. I'll say I'm hungry or I'm tired or whatever it is. Usually it's just somebody in a shop asking me this question anyway, and they really don't care. It's just something they've been trained to say as customer service people. But I just think the word fine is just sort of, I don't like it. Clear communication would have you saying, again, something more real. So in the case of this joke, if someone was saying, I'm fine, a more clear communication would be, I really don't want to have this discussion anymore, which would be maybe better than saying fine with clenched teeth, which of course is anything but. So sometimes it doesn't matter at all what the word actually is. It's all in the way that you say the word. So that was number 1. Number 2 is 5 minutes. And the joke says if she's getting dressed, this means half an hour. 5 minutes is only 5 minutes if you have been given 5 minutes more to watch the game before helping around the house. So again, pretty sexist and stereotypical here, but the point to me is about priority and how a person uses time. So some people are chronically longer and later than they say they will be, and others are bang on time all the time and don't understand why other people can't be on time. Sometimes the use of time, which we call chronemics, varies from culture to culture. So 5 minutes at one place means something quite different in another. And clear communication would be giving a real estimate of how long you will be if you're getting dressed, and then perhaps the other person could finish watching the game. I noticed that that it does mean different things to different people, and so if you really want to know what time a person is coming, then you might have to ask them, really 5 minutes? Is that what you mean? So that's number 2. Number 3 is the word nothing. And this is, the joke says, this is the calm before the storm. This means something and you should be on your toes. Arguments that begin with nothing usually end in fine. So just saying nothing like that drives me nuts. If something is bugging you and all you're able to say is nothing, then that's not very honest at all. And I think paying attention to the tone makes a difference. So if somebody says, what's bugging you, and you say nothing, then that could be true. But if you say nothing, then obviously that is a signal that there is something going on, and maybe the person wants you to dig a little bit deeper. So nothing usually does mean something, and ignoring it might lead to a more muddled communication. So clear communication would be to take the time to actively listen to one another and to find out what is really going on. So number 4 is go ahead. And the joke says, this is a dare, not permission. Don't do it. So again, tone of voice is everything. Why would a person say go ahead if they didn't want the other to do whatever it is they're going to do? Now, I don't know, but it's definitely not clear communication. If you are finding yourself about to say this, you might want to stop and actually tell the other person your feelings about the situation and why you don't want them to do whatever it is they're going to do. So stating your feelings about a situation, not your opinion or your advice, but just your true feelings about something, can actually open up a conversation and bring it to a deeper level. So, when somebody says, go ahead, they don't actually mean it. If they say, go ahead, again, the tone of voice is completely different. It gives a completely different meaning behind the word. And so it's listening again beyond words, listening to tone of voice, pitch, how quickly they're speaking, all of those things that can really make a communication clear. It's frustrating that we don't say what we actually mean, but there's all sorts of reasons for that. And it is kind of hard to say your feelings about a situation. And, something like, I'm not comfortable with you doing whatever it is that you're telling them to go ahead and do. If you're going to do it anyways, then there's nothing I can do to stop you, but I'm not happy about it. And then maybe explain why. And that might open up the conversation, like I said. So that was number 4. Number 5, loud sigh. And the joke says this is actually a word, but it is a nonverbal statement often understood by men. A loud sigh means she thinks you are an idiot and wonders why she is standing here arguing with you about nothing. And then in brackets it says, refer back to number 3 for the meaning of nothing. So a loud sigh, right? Nonverbal communication is huge. The joke is right about the fact that a loud sigh is actually a word in many cases and that it has meaning. So one of the ways to deal with that is to be curious about what is going on for the person sighing. You know, if somebody's sighing and then slamming cupboards, you can obviously tell that there's something wrong. The sigh could be frustration. It could be exhaustion. It could be a number of things, most of which you won't know unless you ask. So here's a tip in communication. Curiosity is key. You might say, I'm curious. How come you're sighing? You know, what's going on? What's bugging you? So a loud sigh actually does mean something, right? And so again, ask the question, what's going on? You know, and be curious if you really want to know. Okay, number 6 is, that's okay. This is one of the most dangerous statements a woman can make to a man. It says in the joke, that's okay means she wants to think long and hard before deciding how and when you will pay for your mistake. So I would like to know why people say that's okay when they really don't mean it. I've said it myself, right? I've had a friend over with a small child who broke something that was important to me and that should never have been touched. And I'm talking about a child having climbed up high to reach this item. And for some bizarre reason, I heard myself saying, oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You know, meanwhile, I'm seething inside and really upset and sad that whatever it was broken. A more honest response would have been something like, you know, that was really important to me and I'm not happy that it got broken. And I'll get over it, but next time I'd really appreciate if you pay attention to what your child is doing, you know. Now that might be hard to say, and you might actually stop after saying, you know, that was really important to me and I'm not happy that it got broken. And that would be okay too. But just to say, oh, that's okay, when it's really not, is untruthful. And it's really unclear communication. And we do it a lot. I know I do it a lot. Maybe if I was less passive and more assertive, which I'm becoming, thankfully, I would be able to say, that's really not cool. And you know, I'd like you to replace that. Again, it depends on who this person is and what your friendship is like. But saying that's okay when it isn't is really unfair to yourself, because what you might do, it's disrespectful to yourself in many ways, because you might then go home and fester and seethe and be mad and replay it over and over in your mind, rather than if you had said flat out, that's not okay. I'm not happy about this. And then see what happens from there, right? So if you mean that that's okay, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. If you really mean that, then fine. But if you don't mean it, then why say it is my question. Okay, so number 7 is thanks. And it says in the joke, a woman is thanking you. Do not question it or faint. Just say, you're welcome. And in brackets, it says, I want to add a clause here. This is only true unless she says thanks a lot, which is pure sarcasm. And she is not thanking you at all. So do not say you're welcome, because that would bring on a whatever. So again, this is true for any gender, right? And the whole gender thing, it's just a vehicle here to discuss these topics. But we're back again to tone of voice. So the word thanks can mean quite the opposite if it's said in a certain way. So if you say it very sarcastically, if you say thanks, you don't really mean thanks, right? You mean it's very sarcastic. If you say thanks, then you do mean it. If you say thanks, you know, I mean, any tone of voice change can change the meaning. And this kind of thing makes it very difficult for people who are learning English to comprehend. And if any of you are out there and find this frustrating, please come and leave a comment on the website, because sometimes it's not the actual word, it's the way the word is said. And if you're trying to learn a language, sometimes intonation is just as important as vocabulary. Right. So I think intonation has to be one of the most challenging parts of learning a new language. And I know that this is true not just for English. This is true for some of the other languages as well. You can have the same exact word said 2 different ways with completely different meanings. So that was number 7. Thanks. Number 8 is whatever. And the joke says this is a woman's way of saying F you. I'm not going to say it because, this is a family podcast. But I don't know about you, but the word whatever is one that triggers a lot of parents, and I'm one of them. I think I've heard myself shrieking words to the effect of, don't you whatever me, right? It seems to have become popular in the last decade or so, and I've seen t-shirts printed with it. I find it really rude. I find it infuriating. I think it's supposed to be that way. So in a way, if it's intended that way, it does communicate clearly. It communicates disinterest and disdain, and it communicates, I don't care what you think or want or say, whatever, So it's one of the words I like the least, and it basically is saying whatever. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. I actually returned at Christmas a set of little girls' gloves. I bought them for a stocking stuffer, and they had a really cute pattern on one side, and I didn't turn them over to see that on the other side was printed on each glove the word whatever. They were a cute design on the one side, which is why I bought them. And then when I saw that they said whatever on the other side, I returned them because I thought, why promote this kind of thing in kids? It's disrespectful, it's rude, and I don't want to promote that because it's hard enough to teach children manners these days. I find it difficult. I find it frustrating that there seems to be a lack of manners out there. I don't know why we're not teaching them the way we did before, but I think promoting this kind of thing in children's clothing is not right. So anyway, that's just my little rant in the middle of my podcast. So the last thing in the joke here was number 9. Don't worry about it. I got it. Another dangerous statement, meaning this is something a woman has asked a man to do several times but is now doing herself. This will later result in the man asking what's wrong. For the woman's response, refer back to number 3, which was nothing. So that's the joke. Don't worry about it. I got it. Right? So this is another example of avoiding clear communication by not stating what's really going on. So if someone actually says that, don't worry about it. I got it. What he or she is actually saying is, I would really have liked it if you had done this because I've asked you to do it many times, but don't worry, I'll do it. And it's not real. It's actually a challenge, If we would talk more about how we are feeling, and I don't mean in a sappy, therapeutic kind of way, but in an honest way, we would have more clear conversations with one another. And that's how I feel about it. So I think that the purpose of this little joke, 9 words women use, really is to showcase how unclear we are much of the time with one another. And again, it doesn't matter if it's, women talking to men talking to women, or anything. It's just that we don't always say the words that match the meaning behind them. And it's confusing. And it can be misleading. And so honest, clear communication is hard stuff. It is risky because telling somebody how you really feel about something can feel scary if you're worried about their reaction, right? The more you practice assertive skills, and you can go back to our episode on assertiveness, the more you practice your assertive skills, the easier this will get. But sometimes it's retraining yourself. It's retraining the way you speak and the way you listen and the way you get curious about how other people are behaving. Because the only thing you can change is how you communicate. You can't really change how other people communicate. Only they can do that. And it's work. It's practice. It's building skill set. And it's never a full accomplishment. I think I said in the video on the website, you're never really an expert in communication. You can be good at it, but even people who have 5 years or 7 years or multiple years of schooling in communications mess up. And it's an ongoing, continuing practice that can be developed over an entire lifetime. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Communication Diva. And I again invite you to make comments, join our newsletter email list, come over to Facebook and like me there, or follow me on Twitter. Have a fantastic week. We're going to be busy packing. We finally sold our house and we are moving next week. So I'm not sure exactly when the next podcast will come out, but I will do my best to get it out on Monday as usual. I hope you are all having a wonderful summer, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.